Trump wants to get kids back to school.
We want our schools open in the fall.
Unless they're foreign.
It just feels awful.
Bolsonaro's wish comes true. The Supreme Court puts the work in. And Melania has a hot time in her hometown tonight. All this and more today in Old News. Back to school. Yes, it's almost that time of year again. Time for those little petri dishes to go interact with a bunch of other petri dishes, where they can cough and spit all over each other. Maybe your little Jaden will find a blood brother this year. Perhaps young Olivia will find someone to share her chocolate milk with. I hope Eugene doesn't get too many wet willies, because those could kill him. That's right, like many other children, Eugene has a compromised immune system. But the supervillain-in-chief Typhoid Trump has declared schools must reopen in the fall.
We want our schools open in the fall.
He tweeted a threat to cut off education funding if schools don't comply with his maniacal plot.
I'm very worried about safety. I'm worried about the safety of the kids. I'm worried about the safety of the school staff.
Parents are not feeling comfortable to send their kids to school.
I don't see how we have the money for masks. I don't see how we have the money for cleaning. I don't see how we do this.
There's just one problem. He totally can't do that. Thankfully, our founders put safety measures in place just in case a lunatic ended up in the White House.
We will never compromise the health and safety of our students, teachers, and staff.
House Democrats quickly dismissed his threat as another example of Trump being mentally challenged. He'd be a lot nicer if someone just took him to the zoo. The differently abled love the zoo. They also love the Hulk, and they're always Gryffindor. You can say hi to one next time you go to church. But the simple dictator will do everything in his power to get the virus factories open next month. So the CDC created guidelines to do it as safely as possible. And Trump said, all these rules, those guidelines are too hard to follow.
The president said today we just don't want the guidance to be too tough.
Calling them very tough and expensive. So the CDC just changed the guidelines.
The CDC is going to be issuing a new set of tools.
Because that's totally how science works. Sounds like school is off to a good start. The only state so far to mandate that schools open and are attended is Florida, the current epicenter of the entire world.
Florida is breaking all the wrong records.
It's the equivalent of a chickenpox plague. It's our National Infection Party, which is coincidentally the nickname for the Republican Party. While he's so interested in education, there's one group he doesn't want to be educated, and that group is any non-American. That's right, dirty, greasy, usually brown foreigners. Harvard and MIT are suing the Trump administration after it announced it would not allow foreign students to take online-only courses in the U.S. this fall semester. If a college is online-only, any foreign students will be fucking deported.
Obviously, our students are concerned, and for good reason.
That includes the entire Indian, Asian, African, and South American population of Harvard University and MIT, which, if you didn't know, is a shitload of students. Ever met an Indian doctor?
The idea of being forced to depart the country for no good reason, it just feels awful.
As the coronavirus rages out of control in southern states, Harvard is one of many colleges who will be holding exclusively online classes in the fall semester.
I see where Harvard announced that they're closing.
Because they're the most prestigious technical college in the world, so they might have some idea how to react to a deadly pandemic.
I think it's ridiculous.
We reported 117 deaths today.
We're pretty well maxed out on ICU capacity.
A busy hospital calling in the National Guard.
The healthcare system is in crisis level.
I think they ought to be ashamed of themselves. You want to know the truth?
The irony is, he's trying to kick out the only people who actually want to be here right now. Even Mexico has closed its border to the U.S. At least 24 states have halted reopening plans as the U.S. passes 3 million cases of the coronavirus.
We're setting records practically every day of new cases.
Some state officials are seeing a silver lining in the fact that fewer people are dying because it's younger people who are contracting the virus.
Young people do extraordinarily well.
Now here's why that whole idea is differently abled. First, you're not seeing the deaths rise because you have to wait a couple of weeks.
We're generally seeing that patients are becoming symptomatic by day 8 and 9. Complications from COVID and mortality can lag several weeks.
Some people don't die for months. But the big reason is, the mass of people that just infected themselves are the most resilient, active, and social group there is.
Young people are going out. They're visiting places that have reopened. They're going to parties, unfortunately. They're taking some risks.
And now they're going out into the greater society.
They absolutely are spreading this to those who are in their 60s, 70s, 80s, and in more vulnerable populations.
It's who those people infect that's the real issue.
It's a false narrative to take comfort in a lower rate of death.
Non-COVID related deaths are also on the rise because hospitals are at capacity, and any hospitals that do have room are lousy with coronavirus.
Chances are if you don't have the virus when you come in, you're being exposed to it because we have so many positive cases.
What happens if you break your arm right now? Most are saying, screw that, I'll just let it heal weird. I'm not going to a hospital. We're literally safer setting our own bones than visiting a medical professional right now. What's worse is some people will get the virus anyway. Then they'll have to say, yeah, doc, I got it. I got the plague. Also, I've got this fucked up arm. A new surge of the coronavirus in Tulsa, Oklahoma was linked back to, you guessed it, the Trump rally. Which brings us to our ongoing segment, Who Knew? If you hold the first mass congregation of people in months, against CDC guidelines and warnings from every health professional on the fucking planet, with people you've told not to distance or cover their mouths, and in fact to scoff at the whole idea of protecting other people, you'll infect a ton of Americans. Who knew? Numbers are coming in from Tulsa, and it turns out it was a super spreader event, just like all of the scientists said.
The past 2 days, we've had almost 500 cases, and we knew we had large events a little over 2 weeks ago, which is about right. So I guess we just connected dots.
Literal human sacrifices to the almighty economy, led by the bloodthirsty Aztec deity, Quetzalcoatl Trump. And this wasn't the young and vulnerable and considerate college crowd. This was old, fat, white Americans with diabetes and heart disease.
I am here to support our president.
A group that holds family and tradition above all else. They will be going to church. You can't stop them from visiting their mother in the care facility, and they will not be wearing a mask to the Piggly Wiggly.
I feel threatened!
You're coming close to me.
Back off! Threaten me again!
Wait, what does that shirt say? Running the world since 1776. What a bag of shit. In the coming weeks, as deaths rise from the multiple generations of Israelis' infections, the President of the United States of America will be guilty of leading a suicide cult, as well as numerous cases of involuntary manslaughter from all the people who get infected by the brainwashed Klan.
No, I don't wear a mask.
It's a good feeling to be out. Everyone looks happy.
My immune system's a little compromised because I'm a breast cancer survivor.
His handling of the pandemic was bad, but his intense encouragement of life-threatening, dangerous behavior and mockery of safe practice on the largest stage in the world is historic. Brazilian Presidente and angry snapping turtle Jair Bolsonaro tested positive for the coronavirus on Tuesday. The fact that he tested positive is shocking. He says he'll be treated with hydroxychloroquine.
A terceira dose da hidroxicloroquina.
Because he invested an actual shit ton of money in the drug. He needs it to turn a profit, since he's being sued by journalists for taking off his mask to announce his positive diagnosis. Yep. In its complaint, the Press Association alleged that Bolsonaro committed at least 2 crimes related to putting someone's life or health at imminent risk. Speaking of crime and punishment, the Supreme Court has been clearing their caseload this week as they prepare for Ruth Bader Ginsburg's Sweet 16 party. You can learn more about it on her TikTok page. Just joshing ya. She's very old. First, they ruled that the Electoral College representatives must honor the choice of the state's voters, which has to upset Electoral College appointed President Donald Trump. If it wasn't for them, he wouldn't be there. Instead, we'd be listening to a qualified career politician with a Gmail account. The justices unanimously rejected the claim that electors have a right under the Constitution to defy their states. But Trump got a win for religious bigotry.
The Supreme Court is allowing employers to opt out of providing birth control,
making it so employers can choose whether or not to cover medical expenses of their employees based on religious, moral, or arbitrary reasoning. And male business owners totally know what's best for the female body. After all, they've been telling them what to do with it for like ever. And finally, the Supreme Court ruled against the president's attempts to shield his financial documents and tax records from New York prosecutors.
This is a political witch hunt.
The documents will be given only to the grand jury and won't make it to the public eye until closer to November, making the whole month of October one long surprise.
Just like the Mueller investigation was a hoax.
The big takeaway is subpoena powers are cemented now. It tees up a larger impeachment where defying subpoenas is criminal.
Officials ordered former White House counsel Don McGahn to defy a subpoena from the U.S. House Judiciary Committee.
Dr. Kupperman was scheduled to testify.
Mr. David Seamus.
And he was a no-show.
Is in fact not present.
What happens if Robert Mueller subpoenas the president? Will you comply?
We don't have to.
We think this whole thing's a charade to begin with.
Defiance is all they've had, and now it's illegal. Plus, Trump's taxes staying secret may be a good thing. Several states have litigation already in play to not allow him or any other politicians on the ballot without financial disclosure.
The law requires all presidential candidates to submit 5 years' worth of income tax records.
Yes, the clunker in the bunker is finding his whites-only secret society baby-eating celebrations are becoming sparser and sparser. As it's happily being discovered, everybody hates Trump.
A lot of people in Africa have been quite shocked, really, by how the United States has been dealing with this pandemic.
I would sort of place the Trump administration in brackets as an anomaly.
This is a response that you would expect, really, from a third world country.
A statue of U.S. First Lady Melania Trump was set on fire in her home country of Slovenia for being an immigrant married to a xenophobe. There's now a call to boycott Goya Foods after the CEO said at a White House event,
"We're all truly blessed to have a leader like President Trump."
This is pouring salt into the wound of a Latino community that is his consumer base.
This video has been circulating online recently of the disgraced president and white windowless van owner being a very loving father. That and his connection to the owners of pedophile Playland are causing the hashtag #CreepyTrump to trend on Twitter.
He's definitely not a typical father. Creepy.
Mary Trump, who has a PhD in clinical psychology, assessed that the shouldn't be president has classic narcissistic personality disorder, just like we said last week.
If he's afforded a second term, it would be the end of American democracy.
To hedge his bets, he enlisted another student to take his SATs for him.
And an undiagnosed learning disability, which makes him the only person where I feel no shame in saying he's retarded.
It's ridiculous, absurd allegations that have absolute no bearing in truth. Have yet to see the book, but it is a book of falsehoods.
Said press secretary and ready for primetime asshole Kayleigh McEnany.
When you compare us to other countries, I don't think you can say we're doing great. I mean, we're just not.
In just 3 years, he's done quite a number on the country.
The luster, the sparkle that the United States has been for so many people has faded in a very dramatic way.
And in other news, the Mississippi Election Commissioner complains that blacks are registering to vote. She said she didn't mean anything by it. So then why the concern at black people registering? Or the implication that there is a difference between blacks and people of Mississippi? Also, she says voters should totally disregard the whole thing because she meant to send it privately to a friend and not post it publicly on Facebook.
I have bladder leaks, but you probably guessed that. It's pretty common among women my age, but you probably guessed that too.
Always brand sanitary napkins created super elegant maxi pads. Always discreet boutique. Well, hello, Mrs. Fancy Pants. Yes, we did that whole segment for that one obscure Evil Dead reference. You're welcome. And finally, it may soon be illegal to make discriminatory, racially based 911 calls in San Francisco. The Caren Act, Caution Against Racially Exploitative Non-Emergencies, was introduced on Tuesday at a San Francisco Board of Supervisors meeting. The name was a toss-up between Karen...
I'm gonna tell them there's an African-American man threatening my life.
...or the girl who cried Big Black Wolf.
Please send the cops immediately.
We put the big in there to make it sound more pornographic. An official said they aren't trying to stop anyone from calling who really needs help. They're just trying to stop all those goddamn Karens. Oh, also, Kanye said he's running for president. And as you know, television goes off the air this time every night. Join us again tomorrow morning for Howdy Doody.